The idea that I'm still married to a man who's going through divorces.
It began as nothing more than a faint whisper of barely perceptible murmur that most would have dismissed as mere background noise. But that whisper, it was the flame that caught, a flame that engulfed a wildfire raging through the already weakened lives of the Brown family. Once the recording was leaked online, there was no room for doubt. The voice on the tape was unmistakable. Robyn Brown. Her tone was a blend of frantic urgency and cold calculation as she discussed the details of a major financial transaction. "It's just $820, Robyn whispered. "Kody doesn't need to know the full amount. If it's listed under family expenses, no one will question it." The fallout was immediate and devastating. Robyn had covertly moved more than $820,000 community property, money that legally was owned by every member of the family, into sole control private accounts. They weren't established in cooperation with Kody as a part of a family trust. No, this, which all for her name, her access. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Your favorite channel for the real untold facts and behind-scenes gossip that you won't find anywhere else. On the next part of this surprising tale, make sure to like this video and subscribe to avoid missing out on future releases. Now let's go back to the story. The origin of the leak. An insider whistleblower from within the TLC production team, somebody who could no longer remain silent. In their words, there was more to go on behind the scenes than anybody suspected. They said it was a poisonous mix of manipulation and blackmail, and that they believed the time had come to reveal the truth. She was the first to hear the leaked tape. Seated in her tiny Arizona apartment with her son Gabe by her side, she listened to the tape twice. Reality crashed down upon her like a storm cloud brewing inside her chest. Her fingers gripped the edges of her laptop as shock gave way. She did it, Janelle breathed. She really did it. Gabe gazed at the books of account records he'd assisted in keeping for the family accounts. His expression turned grim. "This is theft, Mom," he spoke softly. "This is lying." And thus began the falling apart. Janelle reached for the telephone and rang Meri Brown that evening. Her voice was calm, but behind it churned an icy fury. "She stole the family's community property money," Janelle stated flatly. "Well over $800,000, and she used Kody's electronic signature on 2 of the documents." Meri was still in her Utah bed and breakfast, sitting stock still. Her thoughts whirled. "Wait," she demanded, incredulous. "She forged his name." Janelle's voice became harsher. She said it was just normal budgeting. But while she was covering herself, she left the rest of us vulnerable. Christine joined the call on camera, her response unflustered, nearly detached. "She always had a plan," Christine replied, her tone icy. "We were just pawns in it. But this time, she's pushed the boundary." Meri's face tightened. Her tone developed an edge. "If she thinks she's going to get away with this, she said she's chosen the wrong women to play games with." For the first time in years, the 3 former wives stood together. Not in common misery, but in determination. They weren't merely enraged. They were prepared to fight back. And back in Flagstaff, Robyn stepped back onto the TLC set with her customary over-rehearsed cheerfulness. Kody followed behind her, complaining about the light, oblivious as to what awaited him. A producer rapped on a tablet and said, "We just want to get your reaction to this sound." The room fell silent. Robyn's face blanched as her own softly. Spoken words burst from the studio speakers. "Kody doesn't need to know." Kody narrowed his eyes. He glared at her, not speaking until the tape ran out. "You said you were only taking care of the finances," he spat. Robyn faltered over her words. I am. I had to ensure we were fine. My name was signed on those documents," Kody retorted. "You assured me the paperwork was not an issue. You said it was for all of us, not for you alone." Without a word, Kody stood up and left the set. For the first time, even Kody's loyalty finally cracked. Within hours, the media firestorm raged. Entertainment Weekly. Robyn Brown secretly transfers $820,000 in family money. TMZ TLC show in crisis. Robyn Brown accused of stealing community property. The Sun Robyn Brown under fire as sister wives reading legal action. In an instant, the woman who had once been the master of the family story was the focus of a public scandal. This time, there was no damage control, no PR spin, no excuses. Her sister wives spoke out. Christine laid out a timeline of Robyn's financial domination. On a live Instagram stream, Janelle posted redacted documents indicating the precise transfers. Meri issued a poignant post that resonated with everyone. This isn't about money, it's about trust, and that trust is broken beyond repair. Before the eyes of the public, there was no controversy. Robyn Brown had been revealed not as the instigator of infidelity, but as the individual responsible for driving the family to their breaking point. Legal action and the ultimate confrontation, Janelle and Meri wasted no time. Between 2020 and 2024, they requested an independent audit of the family's community property monies. Their lawyers initiated a proper legal case, charging Robyn with financial coercion, fraud, and forgery. They insisted on complete accountability. In spite of the public embarrassment and mounting scandal, Kody refused to stand in their way. His response to the media was wobbly and evasive. "We're working through internal family matters with legal guidance," he said quietly. But by then, the damage was irreversible. Robyn stopped answering calls. TLC halted production. According to insiders, Robyn even threatened to sue the network for airing private conversations. But it was too late. The video was already out, and the fallout couldn't be contained. She sat by herself in the house, the same house that she had talked Kody into purchasing in her own name. But the house didn't feel like a home anymore. Her accounts were frozen. The walls rang with silence. And for the first time, the quiet wasn't serene. It was lonely. The rest of the family met, meanwhile, without her. The breaking point was reached at a family meeting in Arizona. Robyn wasn't included. Meri, Janelle, Christine, and their kids got together for what they termed a realignment. "We must reclaim our power," Janelle decreed. "We will no longer be dictated." 2. Meri surveyed the room. Savannah, Hunter, Michael, Ty, Gabriel, and Gwendolyn. These were the same kids who had felt powerless, dominated by Robyn's power. Now they were standing tall, no longer quiet, united with their mothers. "She founded her empire on our silence," Christine continued. "But our silence is finished. Robyn Brown's isolation." Meanwhile, at home, Robyn scrolled through headline after headline, each one more horrific than the last. She called Kody's straight to voicemail. She called TLC's lawyers, but her calls were blocked. There were no longer cameras, no longer confessionals, no longer fan sites defending her, and no longer Kody sitting next to her to assist in guarding the image she had built. It was just Robyn alone now, sitting with the fallout of her own doing. "I was just trying to protect what was mine," she murmured to herself. But in protecting and controlling all, Robyn had lost it all. The court reckoning. On a gray, chilly morning in Flagstaff, Robyn emerged from a black SUV. Her lawyer stood beside her, but her normal, quiet reserve was absent. There was a fidgety, frantic energy that clung to her like old perfume. Before her, the courthouse towered. This was not another court hearing. 'Twas her reckoning day. Within, the courtroom was full. The benches were occupied by reporters, bloggers, ex-Mormon spokespeople, and locals curious to see the rise and fall of a family once glorified on television. Robyn Brown, the same woman who wept on TLC over being able to hold the family together, was currently seated as a defendant in a fraud and forgery civil case. Meri and Janelle Brown were the plaintiffs. In the front, the judge thumbed through a fat file marked Community Property Fund Audit 202,024 Brown versus Brown. Janelle sat silently behind her lawyer. She had on a plain navy dress, no makeup, but her courage asserted itself in every line of her face. Her unblinking, clear-eyed intensity emanated power. Next to her, Meri sat with a somber face. Her eyes caught Robyn's occasionally, not with sorrow, but with long, damped grieving, now welling up as justifiable rage. And then came a sudden moment. "Mr. Kody Brown, please come on down." The room came to a standstill. Kody brushed a deep breath, his own hands fidgety in his lap. Gone was his display of showman bravado. His hair was tightly pulled back, his face stretched into tension. When questioned about whether he had signed off on sending over $820,000 into accounts held only in Robyn's name, Kody paused, his eyes fell. "No," he replied softly. "I didn't read the forms. I trusted Robyn." The judge's eyes hardened. "And did you know your digital signature was on 3 separate documents?" Kody swallowed hard, then shook his head slowly. No, I didn't. She said she was just streamlining things for the family. I believed her." A shiver of whispers swept through the gallery. Robyn sat rigidly, her face flushed. Her lawyer nervously riffled through documents. Janelle stayed quiet, her eyes fixed with laser-like intensity. This had nothing to do with Kody's breakdown. It had to do with the truth finally coming out. The deception she had been living in for years was crumbling to pieces, and the entire world was witnessing it. Then Janelle stood up. She didn't just have evidence on her back. She had history. As she walked towards the witness stand, her time had come. With determination in her calm demeanor, Janelle stepped into the witness stand and testified about her years of handling family finances. She described how initially the community property accounts were shared, but as time went on, Robyn wanted to get into it. Robyn eventually demanded all the money be placed into what she said was a centralized, safer system. Janelle clarified. When she complained, Robyn shot her down as paranoid and accused her of building distrust. Now, though, it was obvious Robyn hadn't been assisting, she had been concealing. Janelle looked straight at her and told her, "You didn't only lie to Kody. You misled all of us. You stole from our kids, from our futures." Robyn's lawyers were in meltdown by the afternoon. The proof against her was all there. Doctored e-signatures, concealed bank transfers, and forged CP ledger files. Her attorneys attempted to spin the tale, painting her as being overworked and saying she only accepted the monetary burden since nobody else was willing to do so. And then Christine Brown's notarized affidavit came like another bombshell. Christine's testimony sketched out years of exclusion as Robyn plotted to keep the family money for herself, joking to herself that she'd be the last wife standing when this all falls apart. Those words read in court shattered Robyn into tears, but into a broken, wordless panic as the understanding dawned. Her kingdom was crumbling, and she could do nothing to save it. At the conclusion of the day's hearing, the court mandated a complete forensic examination of everything Brown family owned, froze Robyn's individual accounts, and set a hearing back in a week. As Janelle and Meri stepped out of the courthouse, fans applauded. They ignored the press because they had nothing to say. Actions spoke louder than words. For the first time, this family no longer existed under Kody and Robyn's dictatorial grip. She sat slumped on a chill bench inside, gazing blankly at the ground as her lawyer hushed out the next thing to do. But she didn't react. She had lost hold of her image, her finances, and even Kody. Now sitting outside by himself with his head buried in his hands, no longer the focus of it all. Robyn's meticulously constructed facade crumbled that day, the last beat of a war drum, in a war she believed she'd won. Next came the unveiling of the forensic audit report, and the truth struck like lightning. The courtroom was filled to capacity lawyers, court clerks, reporters. and even a representative from TLC all watched apprehensively as the judge lifted the heavy red-covered report. Judge Helms read the verdict in a calm, clinical voice. 14 individual money transfers summing to $823, $417.52. In the years 2020 through 2024 were directed into 3 unlisted accounts with only Robyn Brown's name on them. To that, the investigators had discovered 2 shell trusts with property deeds that had not before been revealed. The room undulated with gasps and murmurs. Meri leaned her head a little bit. Janelle folded her arms tightly. Kody sat back, amazed. Christine had suggested something like this in her affidavit, but nobody had expected the magnitude. The report added more, showing that $412,000 in cash was taken out of the family account to buy a Flagstaff house through the BR's family trust. And another unidentified Sedona vacation home was connected to the scheme, excluded from family records. The secrets just kept on mounting as the court hearing went on and on. Evidence indicated that TLC appearance fees revenue made from the family's reality television show had quietly diverted from the family LLC to Robyn Brown's individual business checking account to help pay for her sold plate proprietorship venture, Sullivan Holdings. Her attorneys attempted to object based on privacy, but it was too late. The judge had the complete trail of evidence, including IP records, bank transfers, and hard evidence. The mask was finally off. Behind Robyn's carefully constructed image existed trust, hidden properties in Sedona. And worst of all, perhaps the misappropriation of funds earmarked for the children. The court found that Robyn had depleted the Brown Futures Fund, an account Janelle and Meri had initially created to fund the tuition of all the children for college. It was down to $4,712, with the balance having been secretly shifted into a new account that only her children, Dayton, Brianna, and Oro, rabbited from through, a shell company named Sullivan Educational Holdings. Janelle sat emotionless while this was read out. But Savannah silently cried next to her brothers Gabe and Garrison's guest in a nearby museum. She stole everything that was for all of us and gave us nothing, Savannah whispered. The deceit cutting so deeply. Simultaneously, Kody Brown, who claimed to be the family leader, descended into depression. Cameras also recorded him walking the courthouse corridors, fists at his sides, repeating to himself, "How could she do this? How could I let her do this?" In time, he sat by himself outside, gazing out at the spinning dust. No longer the patriarch of a family or the protector of anything. When a journalist asked him if he thought Robyn had lied to him, he refused to directly respond, instead mumbling, "I trusted everything she said. I opened our home to her and she burned everything too. The ground." The backlash ensued. With the audit now public, Meri immediately filed a formal motion for damages and restitution, demanding the return of the stolen community property funds, a liquidation of all hidden assets, and a criminal investigation into the forged signatures and false ownership records. Janelle co-signed the motion, and Christine released a public video stating, "Even though I'm no longer part of the family, I'm still witnessing justice being served. You don't get to keep what wasn't yours in the first place, Robyn." Meanwhile, Robyn's world collapsed. She locked herself in her bedroom for 2 days, ignoring buzzing calls from lawyers and TLC representatives. Brought up amidst luxury handbags, concealed property deeds pushed into shoeboxes, and unopened Amazon shipments piled in her closet, she muttered to herself, "I have to keep us safe." But even she could no longer tell herself the lie. Her stockpiled belongings were no longer trophies. Now they were proof. Holding the newest court notice, Robyn read the words aloud. Sullivan Trust Holdings. 30 days to comply with the freeze order. For the first time, Robyn didn't have anyone left to entertain. Her tightly managed persona, her financial scams, and her so-called legacy all came apart. On the web, the reaction was immediate and vicious. Fans who previously defended her now referred to Robyn as the last wife who laid out the Brown family. Reddit, YouTube, and TikTok were filled with breakdown videos, reveals, and timelines called things such as Robyn's takeover of the family, what happened to the money, and a sister wife's reckoning. TLC issued a single statement. The network is considering future filming in light of recent legal developments. Kody went dark on social media. In the meantime, Meri, Janelle, and Christine are said to have begun negotiations with a new production company for a spin-off show, provisionally called Reclaimed Life After Polygamy. Undefined A's for Robyn. She remained in hiding, hugging the very walls she constructed with the cash that once constituted protection. When Judgment Day eventually arrived, the courthouse was thick with a strained, near-spiritual quiet. The empire had crashed. For the ultimate court ruling, only words, papers, and the looming cloud of shattered hopes were admitted to the room. No cameras, no show. It wasn't merely a judicial judgment. It was the burial of a family that had such great hopes. Robyn occupied the defendant's table, wearing black from head to toe, shaking with her body, eyes puffy from days of crying. Her attorney, weary and still, sat next to her. The courtroom was full. But now it wasn't fans in attendance. It was witnesses to justice. Janelle remained still, eyes fixed on the judge, not for vengeance, but to complete the difficult work. Robyn had begun. Beside her, Meri held a lone folder, the original documents Robyn had falsified and hadn't removed it from her grasp since discovering the truth. Judge Helm stepped in quietly, and her voice, drawn out by years of seeing families and empires fall, spoke the words, Robyn Brown was held liable for misappropriation of community property funds, concealment fraud, and civil forgery of financial signatures. Robyn trembled silently, her lips working, but no sound emerging. The courtroom was silent as the judge explained the decision. First, total liquidation of the BR's family trust. All assets, including the Sedona and Flagstaff houses, would be sold at market value. Second, $823,417. 52 in damages would be paid back into the original CP account, now overseen by an independent trustee acting on behalf of Meri and Janelle. Third, every college money taken by Robyn was to be returned to the biological and adopted Brown children by way of the Brown Futures Fund. Fourth, Robyn was also deprived of all financial authority once and for all. She could never again act on behalf of any LLC or Brown family business. And lastly, the issue of the forged documents was turned over to the Arizona State Attorney's Office to consider criminal prosecution. As the judge spoke, Robyn crumpled inward, a sob bursting through as she brushed aside her lawyer's consoling hand. Meri felt no compassion. Janelle breathed slowly, knowing it was done. Reporters were waiting outside the courthouse, but Meri and Janelle walked together, hands clasped, not speaking, a storm of quiet grief and triumph. This wasn't about dollars. It was about decades of silence, sacrifices they had made for a man who wouldn't stand up for them, and the deception of a woman who had built an empire in their backsides while feigning innocence. Christine stood at the end of the sidewalk, hugging both of them. "We did it," Meri breathed. "We finally took back the power." That moment changed the dynamics of the family for good. Robyn was back in a home that was no longer hers. She got a transition letter that night from the trustee requiring her to leave the property within 45 days unless she could purchase it back, which she could no longer afford. Her kids Dayton, Brianna, and Aurora sat silently at the dinner table, candles lit, the room thick. "Now what?" Aurora whispered. Robyn opened her lips, but nothing emerged. Her kingdom had collapsed, and it left only quiet in its wake. Weeks later, the money from the dissolved trust was dispersed. Meri and Janelle stood in an attorney's office going over the new titles. a Utah vacation home, an Arizona commercial building, and 40% of all TLC residuals rerouted into their names. They did not celebrate with champagne or boast. They signed the papers in silence as women who had fought for every inch of freedom with scars to attest. Janelle smiled slightly and spoke in a whisper. Now we get to define what legacy truly is. Kody was last spotted by himself, leasing a one-bedroom apartment in the suburbs of Flagstaff. Longer the hub of anyone's universe, Kody Brown now resides apart from all four of his wives. His former polygamous empire boiled down to a lonely existence filled with quiet and remorse. His phone no longer rings. His hair has begun to gray. And no more TLC financed cruises or large houses only. A small apartment and memories he can't escape. Sitting alone in his empty living room, an old family photo still unpacked on the floor next to him, Kody gazed at the wall before he grabbed the frame. The photograph contained Meri, Janelle, Christine, Robyn, and a younger Kody. Arrogant, self-assured, ambitious, he muttered, "What in the world did I do?" before laying the photo face down on the counter. But the Brown family saga didn't end with Robyn's financial empire crash, and it changed. Christine, Meri, and Janelle now co-produce a new documentary series called Reclaimed, Life After Plural Marriage, about financial self-sufficiency, recovery, and creating new lives out of the ashes of the old one. Their children, finally free of fear and duty, are finally speaking out for the first time. As for Robyn, she disappeared from the limelight. TLC discreetly dropped her. Her Flagstaff residence was auctioned and her name disappeared from trending pages. She became an outcast in the very world she used to dominate, an occurrence she never envisioned. Meanwhile, the others continued, changed by tough learnings and a new purpose. Let us hear your opinion in the comments, and do not forget to subscribe to our channel for such updates in the future. Thanks for watching.